In this week's video, I discuss the myth of GT-R transmission defects and get the real story from Master GT-R tuner Sam Barros. Join me in this new video by the Garage Studio. Hi everyone, my name is Daryl. So today I'm going to talk about GT-R transmissions. So I'm the proud owner of a 2012 GT-R and it's got 120,000 miles on it, but I've never had any transmission problems. So I wanted to understand this issue a little bit more. So I wanted to do some digging and do some research. And today I'm going to talk to you about what I found. So the first thing I did, of course, is went out to the internet and did a search. I also wanted to post to a Facebook group. There's a really popular Facebook group with a lot of activity. It's called the R35 GT-R Owners Group. And so I just posted a question about, how prevalent were transmission failures are. And I got a really pertinent response from this guy named Sam Barros. He's a really popular tuner and he's one of the best, at least according to this group. And so I want to quote what he said. So Sam said, "I would argue it's very rare, the transmission failures. I tuned a bit over 320 Nissan GT-Rs last year. 0 cars had a transmission break. Back in 2009, the original Nissan GT-R had a launch control of sorts, termed LC1. LC1 stands for launch control. This was launch control version 1. That dumped the clutches at 4,100 RPM, and it broke a lot of transmissions. Nissan refused to warranty the transmissions, which made the whole thing internet famous. The transmissions can and do break, especially older and high mileage ones, but not any more than other vehicles." And so, yeah, I really appreciated that response. He didn't say that the Nissan GT-R transmissions were perfect or that they never break, but the prevalence is way overblown. So Sam, you know that I'm kind of working on a GT-R video. It's basically, I've heard a lot of issues with transmissions on the GT-R, and I've had my GT-R, for 12 years now. And I've never had any difficulties. And so, I put that post out there about, what kinds of issues do people see with their transmissions? And you replied with a really thoughtful post, given your experience tuning GT-Rs. Can you talk about real quickly, what your experience tuning GT-Rs is?
Yeah, sure. So I'm a mechanical engineer. Something that I think people don't know about me is that my tuning business, while it is a big part of how I spend my time, it's actually not my primary business. I work as director of engineering for a fuel systems company, and I started tuning GT-Rs because I had one. I do some calibration as part of my work. I thought it would be interesting to tune my own car. My friends wanted me to tune theirs, and then, next thing I knew, I was tuning 323 GT-Rs last year. I have quite a bit of experience with these cars. I have tuned a little bit less than 1,000 by now, 800 Nissan GT-Rs. And, of course, I see everything from cars that come to me broken, looking for a calibration fix, to cars that do things that they probably shouldn't. I had a guy once in Africa running 89 octane do a pull, a data logging pull to 340 kilometers an hour, and I, to this day, am not entirely sure how the car didn't blow up.
So I've
seen everything.
So 340 kilometers. What is that in stupid US speed?
209, 207.
Oh, geez.
Oh yeah, I don't even know where you would go, to drive that fast. Clearly, roads in Africa are better than the ones we have in Detroit, and that much I'm pretty sure. But yeah, so I've seen a lot, and one of the things that I have seen is I have seen cars break transmissions. So obviously, As with anything else, I'm not going to sit here and tell you that they never break. But on the grand scheme of things, it's quite rare.
Hmm.
For example, last year, out of 323 GTRs that I tuned, I can think of 4 cars that had problems, and 3 of those had sensor issues. So it's the clutch or the hydraulic pressure sensor in the transmission, and then you get the transmission faults out when the pressure sensor goes bad, and then the car will not go into gear. And usually I get an email because, unfortunately, one of the realities of doing calibration is once you touch a car, if the radio doesn't work, you'll get an email. Yeah, and then one of the cars did break something. I believe it was a rear axle that broke on the drag strip, and that car was running nitrous. And then just looking back the last 5 years or so, I've had a couple cars break on the drag strip. Usually it's the clutch basket when you put a sticky tire and you do a high RPM launch. Weirdly enough, if you have a slick, the soft sidewall of the slick does absorb some of the shock.
Oh, that's interesting. Yeah.
Cars running slicks, oftentimes they can launch very hard, and they can get away with some pretty hard launches without breaking stuff. But as you get into something that combines a good amount of grip with a stiff sidewall, like an R888, every once in a while, a car like that would just dead hook on the drag strip and it would break a clutch basket. But that's really about it. I would say at the bolt-on level, that transmission failures almost never happen.
Really?
And then as you get into the bigger power cars, you're getting into upgraded turbos, you're making 850 wheel on a stock transmission. They will once in a while break a clutch basket, or once in a while break an axle, and usually because you're racing the car. Now, the question comes, why is it that there's this perception that Nissan GT-R transmissions, and as I mentioned on my post, it does have a very solid base, right? What happened was when the Nissan GT-R came out in 2008, the cars had something that was not meant to be launch control. I think it was, Nissan claims it was designed to get the car unstuck from snow, which it might have just been damage control after the whole issue. It's not advertised as launch control. 2012, one of the new features was launch control. My GT-R was a 2014, and the manual explains how to use it and works and what it's supposed to do. For the BBA cars, there was no launch control, but it did have a launch feature here. And that launch feature, what it would do is it would rev the engine up to 4,500 RPM and then just dump the clutch. And for anyone that's ever driven a manual car, you know that that's a pretty harsh thing to do with the driveline. So what would happen is that people would use it, and it was quick. It would do a pretty good 0 to 60, and then after a couple of those, something would break, and Nissan just flat out denied warranty claims. In fact, to this day, if a failure happens when you're driving the vehicle with BBC off, it is not covered by warranty. It is in your owner's manual. So BBA cars will launch VBC-R. So you're launching with traction control, and it is covered by your warranty if you're still under warranty. But for the CBA cars to launch, you had to turn off traction control, and then when you did that, you're on your own. So cars were breaking transmissions. Back then, there was no repair available. The only solution was a new transmission, and it cost something like $20,000. I remember it was shockingly expensive. So it blew up on the internet. And basically, if you're an outsider and you didn't know anything about Nissan GT-Rs, the two things everyone would parrot like an idiot was, they drive themselves, because Jeremy Clarkson said that on a Top Gear review.
Yeah, I remember that.
Every teenage boy is like, they drive themselves. I'm still looking for the self-driving feature in my GT-R. Never found it, but somehow people think that they drive themselves, and the transmission is garbage and it breaks. So it doesn't drive itself, I promise you that, and the transmission is not garbage and it doesn't break. But if you run the LC1 and you attempt a launch with LC1, it can break stuff.
Yeah.
So what happened since then, and the reason why we are today at, me being able to tune 320 cars in 1 year and see one transmission break, is because we no longer use LC1. So all the cars are getting tuned nowadays. They run LC5. It's a low RPM launch, and it launches with clutch slip. So the clutch is slipped. They take the shock out of the driveline. Things tend not to break. It's a lot easier on components. It's how Porsche, Ferrari, Lamborghini, pretty much everything with a modern DCT is launching anyway. And then the other thing that's really worth mentioning is Dodson and Shep Trans, John Shepard, they now have parts to fix whatever breaks. So if you break something on your transmission, you're no longer having to buy a brand new one. So if you get a clutch basket, you can get a billet one, or if a sensor goes bad, you can buy replacement sensors. So they're much more reliable and they're much cheaper to maintain and repair.
So I'm curious, did you have somebody initially tune your car and then you were like, hey, I can do this? Or did you just kind of dive in on the deep end and figure out all that tuning stuff yourself?
So the story of how I tune my GT-R is I was thinking about it. I had the two main tuners give me a quote for what it would cost. And then it was right around the time that SEMA was happening. So I was at SEMA for work, as part of my job working for a fuel systems company. And I was chatting with the guys at the Cobb booth. And the main guy at Cobb, he was director of engineering, Derek, at the time. He's like, oh, so what do you have a GT-R? What do you have done to yours? And he said, oh, it's actually completely stock. And he's like, what? You must have the only stock GT-R in America.
No, I still got a stock. Mine's still stock.
So Derek gave me an access port for free, and he gave me the access tuner software. So I had already done calibration before as part of my job. Now that I had a free access port, I just had to do it. So I talked to a friend of mine that owned a performance shop, a BCP, Boost Control Performance, here in Michigan. He let me use his dyno, and I just stayed all day on the dyno, just tinkering with it, doing timing sweeps and AFR sweeps and seeing how the variable valve timing affected spool. And that was really how I got my start on tuning it.
That's great. That's great. So if people are interested in using your services, do you have like a web page, or do they just contact you directly, or?
So I actually don't have a website for my tuning business. It's all word of mouth, and I already have really as much work as I can handle.
Oh no! I gotta.
Word of mouth. But
I need to send you mine, man.
No, I'm really happy with it's been a real blessing getting into this, and all the people that I've met and all the experience that I've had because of it. But everyone just contacts me through Facebook.
Okay.
It's just Sam Barros, that's my name. Or I also have a Facebook page for my tuning business.
Oh, nice. Okay.
Power Labs. Or you can email me. My email is sam@power-labs.com.
Well, Sam, thank you so much for taking the time to talk to me about your experience with GT-R transmissions, and I'm hoping this kind of put this whole myth to rest. And if somebody ever talks about GT-R transmissions again, I'll just point them to your discussion here. So I really appreciate it.
Well, there you go. Thank you very much for doing this video. It was a pleasure talking to you today. And if you ever want to get your car tuned, don't hesitate to reach out.
Okay. Thank you, Sam. I really appreciate it. Have a great day, man.
Have a good day.
Okay, bye.
So the GT-R transmissions, like any other high-powered all-wheel drive sports car, can have transmission problems. This happened in 2009 through 2011, where they had an issue with the transmission actuator piston. It's often called a solenoid, where basically the solenoid was installed in soft metal, and the solenoid could kind of turn in that soft metal, and that caused problems because this is what switched between different clutches, and so you could only use
gears 1, 3, and 5, as well as reverse, or gears 2, 4, and 6. So Nissan pretty quickly recognized that this was an issue, and they came out with a fix. They issued a TSB. It was called the TSB clip fix. Basically, it was just a $45 3 sets of clips that you could install, and that it would stop those solenoids from turning and would permanently fix the issue. There's a YouTube channel called GT Content, which shows how to install this fix. And I'll be referencing other YouTube videos in this video, and any of the links for those videos will be in the description. So another common issue with GT-R transmissions are basically in the sensors, whether it's the clutch sensors or the transmission sensors. One particular issue involves the clutch pressure sensor. And the part itself is only about $200, but the problem is you have to pull the transmission off, take it apart in order to replace that sensor. But the cost for the labor in order to pull that transmission out, dig into it, and then put the transmission back in place can get relatively expensive, but it's nothing as expensive as actually replacing the GT-R transmission. And so if you have this issue and if you take it to a Nissan dealer, they're not going to fix that particular issue. Their resolution is basically to replace the transmission. So there's this YouTuber named Evan Shanks, and he's the one that put this particular video together, documenting the problem and the fix that they did. So most of the transmission failures back in 2009 typically involve first gear, but with enough horsepower, torque, and introduce a little bit of wheel hop, and really any gear can fail. So there's this shop owner named John Shepard, who's owner of Shep Trans. There's this really nice video that talks about the first gear issues as well as other issues that involve GT-R transmissions and some of the fixes that he provides. So fortunately, a number of vendors have stepped up to the plate to do transmission fixes. So both Shep Trans as well as Jack Transmissions can rebuild GT-R transmissions for a lot less than what it's going to cost to actually replace it. The nice thing about getting a transmission rebuilt by one of these two vendors is the fact that when they do it, they introduce new parts into the GT-R transmission that actually makes it a lot stronger and a lot more durable. So you could go full bolt-on with both of these transmissions without having to worry about stressing the transmission too much. If you do have the 2009 to 2011 CBA GT-R that has the not necessarily best launch control software, you can always get it tuned. So you can either use the Cobb or the Ecutech tuners, and you can use LC4 or LC5 or have it specially tuned just the way you want it. So that's it. I don't know about you, but after doing this research and putting this video together, I feel a lot less stressed about my GR6 transmission failing. I'll be doing another video specifically about the transmission and buying a used GT-R and some of the things that you should look for when inspecting the GT-R to ensure you don't have any transmission problems. And that video will be linked on the end screen when I get it published. As always, if you got some value from this video, please consider liking it. Once again, YouTube really looks at the likes, and the more people that like a specific video, the more likely that video will be sent out to others, which I hope helps additional people. Also, please consider subscribing so you don't miss any content, because I've got a lot of content coming out soon for the GT-R. And I hope to see you in the next one again very soon.
I've seen a lot of change, been through a lot of pain. Some things are not the same as they were a year ago, but all will be okay. I move on each and every day. The past is where it stays.